Alba became a reincarnator in a fantasy world of sword and magic. In order to save that world, he had made a decision to never draw attention to himself. However, in an incident involving a girl he cherished, Alba jumped in to rescue her. He was left wondering, what the hell was he doing? Kriana Fantasy was a game set in the Kriana Royal Academy, and it was a very popular dating action RPG. The route changed depending on the player's actions, and one could enjoy the battle action while attending the academy. You could also enjoy dating the academy's heroines, and you would have a lot of freedom and many endings. However, no matter what route you take, there was one character who would stand in your way without fail. An elite son of a duke, Alba Aricia. He was a strong, arrogant, self-indulgent womanizer with a bad temper. Alba was the ultimate villain destined to become the protagonist's enemy. That Alba was currently living in the middle of the mountains. He yawned as he greeted the sky, exclaiming how wonderful his morning was. It had already been 3 years since he had been reincarnated as Alba. Back then, in Duke Areshia's mansion, his soul got reincarnated into Alba's body. Without realizing it, he didn't recognize the scenery around him, nor himself in the mirror. He tried to make sense of everything. Then he remembered that there was a certain game that he played, Kriana Fantasy. It was a youth fantasy game set in Kriana Academy, where one villain was guaranteed to get in his way. He remembered the character Alba, who once proclaimed that the saint was his. He abducted her and claimed that he would treat her really nicely. Sometimes Alba would steal the heroine from the player. He also became corrupted by evil and became the destroyer of the academy. No matter what route, he would be the ultimate villain. The reincarnated man's memory about the game was spotty as he didn't play through every route. However, he could remember Alba's character well. He couldn't believe he was reborn as Alba, and he questioned why it had to be him. His confused head could only come up with one answer. Alba was guaranteed to die. Bro asked for a new life, not a new life sentence. Sometimes he died in a fight with the protagonist for the heroine. He was also cut down by the protagonist to stop his evil deeds. No matter what route, Alba's death couldn't be avoided. Alba banged his fist on the table, cursing as he faced the truth. He didn't understand why he got reincarnated. To make it worse, it was like he was waiting for his own death without understanding anything. Then he realized that if this were his fate, then he had to run from his destiny. That very same night, Alba was announced missing. The mansion's staff was furious as he was able to slip out of their guard again. Alba took all the valuables from his room, fitting them all in a huge bag. He mentally bid his family goodbye, knowing he couldn't just sit around and wait to die. If he sold all his belongings, he would be able to live by himself in the countryside. At that moment, Alba's mission was to survive. 3 years had passed since that day. Alba died and cut his hair, then bought a small cottage in the mountains. It sure was inconvenient compared to his past life, but he now lived a quiet retirement full of work. Most importantly, he was also alive. Just then, Celia exited the house, apologizing to Alba for getting up late. He greeted her with a good morning, realizing that the goddess of destiny in this world was not so sweet as to let him go. The girl was Celia Margaret, one of the potential love interests of the game. Celia told Alba that she got a letter, but he told her to eat it if it was about his debt. Celia got offended, reminding Alba that she wasn't a goat. He laughed and patted her head, apologizing for teasing her. However, at the back of his mind, he knew he shouldn't be involved with her, especially since she was one of the people who could lead him to his death flag. Celia was the saintess serving the goddess of their world's religion. By the grace of the goddess, she was a famous and rare person who excelled in healing and could predict disasters. One might wonder how the saint was involved with Alba. It all started half a year ago. As Alba was busy tending to his garden, he found himself lucky that the place looked exactly like the game. Most especially, he was grateful that he was familiar with the vegetables. He didn't think his family was searching for him, but he was still worried about it. He also didn't think he would experience people in town treating him like a dead person either. Back when he went to town undercover, he overheard a group of women gossiping about him. One claimed that the nasty son of the Aricia family died, making one of the women happy as the town could finally be at peace. Since his family hadn't reacted to those rumors, he guessed they hated Alba. Imagine faking your death and literally no one files a missing person report. Just then, Alba heard a scream from the distance. In the forest, an armored guard told the saintess to run. However, she was frozen where she stood, cornered by a group of bandits. One suddenly bolted towards her with a dagger, but an explosion sent him flying into the air. Alba suddenly appeared, saying he didn't know what was going on, yet he was sure they shouldn't make girls cry. When Alba caught a glimpse of Celia's face, he was struck with a sense of familiarity. Then it hit him. She was one of the heroines. He had actually run into one of the main characters related to one of Alba's death flags. The whole reason he isolated himself all the way into the mountains was because he didn't want to meet any of them under any circumstances. It seemed like the goddess of destiny wouldn't overlook Alba escaping his fate. At that moment, Alba told Celia this was some hefty welcome favor. Suddenly, 3 of the bandits attacked simultaneously. Celia screamed at him to run away while the bandits readied their weapons. However, Alba was quick to react, repelling the bandits with an explosive counterattack. As he observed the aftermath of his powers, he told himself that the situation couldn't be helped, since he had already made contact with Celia. Meanwhile, Celia couldn't believe that in a single flash, Alba was able to defeat all the assassins. It turned out that every day since Alba isolated himself in the mountains, he had trained to understand and wield the power of their world's magic. Although he knew it was a game, he couldn't help but feel guilty over killing people living in the same world as him. However, on that day, he made up his mind to escape his destiny. No matter what kind of death came for him, he would resist it with all his might. As the chaos settled, Alba asked Celia if she was all right, though he knew she wasn't. As he gazed over the soldiers' dead bodies, Alba apologized for not being able to save them. Celia suddenly broke down, saying she couldn't do it anymore. It was her duty as the saintess to travel all over the land on a pilgrimage, but somebody was always targeting her. It was the final straw that broke the camel's back, and the young girl's true thoughts that she had been repressing all her life had finally overflowed. The saintess held the second most powerful position after the Pope in the Church of the Goddess, which had believers all over the world. She always got attacked by people who wanted to use or steal her powers, or those who thought it was in the way of their goals. Innocent people were always sacrificed to protect her. At that moment, Alba realized that if he saw this as Kriana fantasy played out on a screen, he would only think of it as her backstory. However, seeing this young girl crying in front of him, he knew he didn't have a choice. This was reality. Celia continued with her woes, saying she didn't want to be scared anymore. She didn't want to do anything, and she only wanted a normal life. Seeing her break down, Alba knew those tears weren't fabricated. Just then, Alba rested his hand on Celia's head, making her stop crying. He asked if she wanted to come to his house, making her even more confused. He understood why she was surprised, as it seemed like he asked it out of nowhere. He might have said that faster than he could think. He was not dealing with a game character, so Alba was careful with what he said next. He explained that he didn't know what her situation was, but he could tell she had been working hard. That was why he thought it should be okay for her to rest, as she did her best after all. He reminded her that resting enough to smile was more important than working so hard that it made her cry. Alba had felt in her words that she was human, just like him. He gave her a choice: follow her destiny in making herself cry, or run away with him if she didn't have anywhere to run. He knew that this girl wished for it. She wanted to rebel against her destiny just like him. He then held his hand out to Celia, telling her she could run away with him. He shouldn't get close to a girl related to his death flags, but he couldn't help but think he would like to see her with a smile rather than crying. Celia then took his hand, pleading to let her go with him. As the day ended, they both introduced themselves to each other. Half a year later, Alba could see that a smile suited Celia much better than tears. After Celia regained her good mood, she received a reply to the letter she sent to her father, the Pope. Alba asked what the letter said, but Celia didn't answer. She suddenly dug her face into his chest, asking him to stay with her. Alba got a bit awkward, but he reassured her that he would. After all, he saved her, and now he was responsible for her until the end. Celia's eyes glimmered with joy, and then she hugged him tightly. Alba guessed she probably needed him to take her to the church where her father was. It was his fault that she ran away, so he probably wouldn't get off easily. Celia then urged Alba to come with her to a special place, one that she was pointing to in the paper she was holding. To Alba's shock, it was a Kriana Academy pamphlet, the stage of Kriana fantasy, or rather the executioner's block overflowing with Alba's death flags. He had promised himself never to get close to that place, yet the goddess of destiny really wouldn't let him slip away. Celia then told Alba that her father said she should go there if she wanted to live a normal life. If Alba went with her, she would have the best school life ever. Alba remained quiet, then screamed that he didn't want to go. Days passed, and Alba and Celia went to Kriana together. Celia marveled at the academy's vastness, while Alba tried to look interested. Despite avoiding his cruel fate, he ended up coming to that place anyway. Celia suddenly asked if he was feeling alright because he looked pale. Alba tried to play it cool, reasoning that it was merely carriage sickness. Celia asked if he wanted to lie down, offering her lap as a pillow. However, Alba panicked, saying it was fine and thanking her for the offer. Celia didn't know about Alba's death flags in the academy, or about how they were related to the game's heroines. After all, Celia was one of them. Just then, Celia looked at him with concern, telling him not to push himself. At that moment, Alba mentally asked himself why he was even going into the academy with her. Not long ago, Celia received a letter from her father, the founder of the most popular religion in the world, the Goddess Church. His power and authority were on even footing with the King of Kriana. Alba had been sheltering Celia, his daughter, due to certain circumstances she had been facing. When Alba opened the letter, he thought it would contain angry threats. However, he was shocked to see that it was filled with apologies and gratitude. In the letter, Celia's father explained that his daughter was the saintess, and that was not because she was his daughter. She had received the grace of the goddess and had been born with miraculous powers. From the moment she was born, her fate had been sealed. She would devote herself to the goddess's teachings. She had been visiting the people who believed in the goddess ever since she became aware of her surroundings. No matter how harsh or perilous the journey, she sought to bring salvation to the stray sheep with the power of the goddess. Celia never complained, not even once. She only fulfilled her duty. One time, Celia told her father that what she was doing was the duty of one born as the saint. Her father was grateful for his daughter saying such words with a smile on her lips. However, he had not realized what a fool he had been. He never noticed that her smile was there to simply hide how she truly felt. Celia was also one of the stray sheep. All this time she had been crying on the inside, wishing for somebody to save her. Celia's father wrote that Alba not only saved his daughter's life, but also her soul. He had nothing but the deepest gratitude for him. However, Celia was still the saintess, and her father was the founder. Yet, as her father, he wanted to fulfill the wish of his beloved daughter. He wanted to support her in obtaining the normal life she wished for. Celia's father wrote that it was all right for Alba to laugh at a sinner like him, but Alba couldn't find it in himself to do so. After reading the letter, Alba told Celia that her father was a wonderful man. She was surprised, but she agreed with him. Just then, Alba read in the letter that Celia's father had a request, though it would sound rude. He wanted him to attend the Kriana Academy alongside Celia. It was a place where many talented people faithful to the goddess gathered. No other place could match the education of the Royal Academy. He was sure Celia could live the life she wished if she attended Kriana Academy. At that moment, Alba informed Celia of her father's request. Celia's father claimed that his mind would be at ease if he could have someone as strong as him, who single-handedly defeated the assassins after his daughter's life at her side. On top of that, he was sure Celia herself wished to stay with Alba. Just then, Celia told Alba that it was all right, as she didn't mind going to the academy alone. Alba smiled warmly, seeing how Celia's smile tricked her father. It hid her true intentions very well. Just then, Alba told Celia that the academy was a scary place. There were tons of people there, and many of them were bad guys, eager to throw their weight around. Seeing that Celia was confused, he went on to explain that the academy was managed by the country, so he didn't think her life would be in any danger like it was during her pilgrimages. However, there would be plenty of nasty guys who wanted nothing more than to seduce a cute girl like her. Alba loudly asked if she still wanted to go, leaving Celia stunned. Just then, she smiled and said that she would surely have lots of people who would become her friends. Alba replied that she would end up losing all her free time to studies she had no interest in. However, it turned out that Celia was actually looking forward to it, as all she ever studied was the Bible. Alba argued that an unfamiliar place would exhaust her, but Celia was rather excited to go somewhere new. Celia looked eager, making Alba smile. That being said, Alba decided to go with her. In his mind, Alba reminded himself that he should just stay away from the academy and Celia. However, he had already decided to rebel against the death flags with all that he had, thinking that a smile suited Celia better than a sad frown. Celia suddenly knelt on the ground, thanking the goddess for her guidance. Meanwhile, Alba thought her goddess was guiding him to death. Just then, he speculated that it was the goddess who guided him to the world he was in. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock as he saw something in the letter. Celia asked what was wrong, worried that he had changed his mind about going to the academy. Alba stuttered, saying that he was looking forward to it. It turned out that Celia's father had one final wish, threatening Alba not to make his daughter cry. Later on, they arrived at the Kriana Academy. They were both in awe, seeing how big the place was. It was much more imposing than Alba could ever feel through the screen. The academy had grand infrastructures, and every corner was filled with intricate statues. Celia noticed that there were statues of the goddess, the hero, and even the holy beast that protected maidens. She asked Alba if he thought they were amazing, but he was lost in his own thoughts. He had this nagging feeling that each of them was related to different events in the game, but he just couldn't remember. Just then, Alba turned to Celia, telling her to address him as Al while they're in the academy. Celia gasped, realizing he was right. Alba wanted to hide his identity as Alba Aretia in order to avoid his death flags. Bro dropped one letter and called it stealth. Celia's father, the Pope, had provided him with the identity of Al, the Holy Knight Apprentice. Suddenly, Celia shared how she couldn't believe Alba was a nasty guy who ran away from home and was being treated like he was dead by his family. Alba laughed awkwardly, seemingly agreeing with her. Celia then said that he shouldn't worry, because in the unlikely event that they did run into problems, her father would be sure to crush them under his thumb. Alba played along, saying that the founder's power was surely awesome. Unbeknownst to the two, the people surrounding them were gossiping. Although they had the Pope's protection, Alba reminded himself to do his best in staying away from anyone related to his death flags. It just annoyed him that his memory of the game was very fuzzy. Suddenly, in the midst of the crowded area, Someone in the crowd raised a question, asking if Celia was the saintess. This inquiry immediately spurred many of the students to edge closer. Their curiosity piqued. They began to gush over her presence, clamoring to have the honor of shaking her hand. As the place got crowded, Alba found himself getting farther from Celia. He started panicking, knowing this was what he should have really been worried about. Celia was a superstar in this world, and many wanted to be her friend. The surge of unfamiliar faces overwhelmed Celia, and she started to become scared. She closed her eyes in fear, saying she only wanted a normal life. Sis was not ready for the medieval paparazzi. Suddenly, a strong crack of lightning flashed through the crowd, leaving everyone stunned. It turned out to be Alba, rescuing Celia from everyone. He announced that Celia wasn't there as the saint, as she was just a student of Kriana Academy. He told them to refrain from thoughtlessly crowding her like they did earlier. He then claimed that as a Holy Knight apprentice, he would risk his life to protect the saintess. Hearing him say this, Celia's eyes widened in awe. One of the students wondered what had just happened, knowing that Alba had just taken the saintess away in the blink of an eye. They then speculated that he was a son of a great noble family. Meanwhile, Celia thanked Alba, but he merely shrugged it off, knowing that the founder would be mad if he let her cry. As they walked away, a woman observed them from afar, wondering if she had just seen Alba. Celia called over to Alba, telling him to hurry because they had to get uniforms. Meanwhile, Alba paused before entering the academy. He thought he was prepared, but now that he was actually standing there, the more his doom seemed inevitable. His hand curled into a fist, but Celia held him for comfort, telling him it was okay. She told him not to be scared, as she was with him. Alba looked at her endearingly, thinking the situation was pathetic because he should be the one who was supposed to protect her. As expected of the saintess, he completely calmed down. He then thanked Celia, and she admitted she was also a little nervous. Later on, they entered the academy, where they were greeted by a giant glass window of a known hero. Celia asked if it were the hero protecting the goddess, but Alba was more amazed by the size of it. At that moment, Celia immediately got on her knees to pray. Alba smiled, realizing Celia never failed to pray for everyone, no matter the time and place. Meanwhile, Celia prayed to end up in the same class as Alba. Alba was shocked, knowing she had said that due to personal interests. After that, they both went to get their uniforms. There, they were informed by a professor that they both belonged to the unicorn class. Nothing screams prestige like getting sorted into My Little Pony Hogwarts. Celia expressed her joy in being in the same class as Alba, and he also felt the same. The professor then told them to enjoy their school life to the fullest. Celia thanked him, while Alba speculated that the old man was involved in some kind of event. As they left the building, Alba felt relieved that nothing had happened. Celia, on the other hand, was too excited about wearing the uniforms. Once again, she called him by his real name, so Alba reminded her to only call him Al. Just then, the mysterious woman called out to Alba. She noticed his hair color was different, but she was sure about who he was. The woman's fiery red hair unlocked a memory in Alba's mind. This person was unforgettable to Alba's character. This was Elena, a romance target and one of the heroines. She was also Alba's childhood friend and betrothed. Most importantly, she was tied to his death flag. Elena suddenly asked why he was with the saintess, but Alba remained quiet. Celia asked if she had mistaken him for someone else, claiming that he was Al, a Holy Knight apprentice and her attendant. Elena thought this was ridiculous, as Alba simply removed the ba in his name. Celia and Alba were stunned by her response. Celia then argued that he was Al, and he was definitely not Alba, who was having an awkward meeting with someone he knew because he ran away from home. Alba freaked out at what she said, while Elena finally caught up with what was going on. Celia insisted Elena was wrong, frantically saying that Alba saved her life, but he was also Al at the same time. Alba tried to calm her down, but Elena had already understood that he met the saintess after running away. She mentioned how he spread the rumor of his own death, but Alba pretended to know nothing about her allegations. Then, out of nowhere, Elena slashed her sword before Alba, taunting him. She warned that if he kept playing dumb, she would cut him down. Alba was in disbelief, seeing that she was definitely serious. That's what you get for ghosting an ex with anger issues. Celia called Alba concerned, but he told her to stand back. People started to take notice of the commotion. They recognized that Elena was from the prestigious Persia family, while Alba was known as the saintess's attendant. Once again, Elena asked if he were Alba. Before speaking, Alba reminded himself that no matter what fate may befall him, he would fight it with all his strength. Just then, Alba spoke, insisting he was Al. Elena smirked, warning that she would now engrave her sword into his body. She darted toward him, claiming this was the crime and punishment of deceiving the Persia family. Alba panicked, knowing that Elena was the best swordsman in the game. Then Elena prepared to deliver a lethal blow. But before she knew it, Alba vanished from her sight. Everyone was shocked, especially Elena. Suddenly, Alba appeared behind her, telling her to calm down. Elena couldn't figure out when he made that move, but nevertheless, she didn't surrender. She slashed her sword, but Alba merely held the blade with his fingers. Elena was shocked, seeing that Alba had stopped her sword. The crowd was beyond baffled because he not only disappeared, but he also managed to stop Elena's attack. This made them wonder who exactly this guy was. Meanwhile, Alba smirked, knowing his magic power was superior. Fire, water, and wind were elemental affinities that were powers of nature. One must harmonize with the attribute that suited them best. Back in the mountains, Alba remembered looking up the attributes and weaknesses of enemies for battles while playing the game. At that moment, he told himself to focus his mind and harmonize it with the world around him. He felt a faint sensation in his hand, a strange feeling beyond the five senses. He finally knew. His attribute was lightning. In Alba's first 2 years of training, he told himself to keep the sensation in his mind and sharpen it constantly. In his 3rd year of training, he was able to master the power of the magic until he wielded it freely. He was able to transform his entire body into lightning itself. When he performed it for the first time, Alba was amazed, as he had expected from the strongest villain. He now had the power to resist the death flag. At the present moment, Alba told Elena to listen to him, but she only told him to shut up with his foolish nonsense. Just then, he said he knew she hated Alba, but he was just Al now. Elena gritted her teeth in anger as she felt more than just resentment. She swung her sword, but Alba vanished again. Everyone was shocked, even more so when they noticed that Celia had disappeared too. Elena fell silent, realizing they had escaped. Just then, a concerned bystander asked Elena if she was okay, and she confirmed she was. A single teardrop rolled down her cheek, and she pretended a bit of dust got into her eyes. Meanwhile, Alba reached a busy street, convinced they were now far from the academy. He was carrying Celia in his arms, which somehow surprised her. Just then, Celia flashed him an annoyed look, causing Alba to ask if she was mad at him. She denied it, and instead asked who Elena was. She noticed she was more mature than her, had a bigger chest, and was pretty. For sure, Celia wasn't jealous. Suddenly, Alba laughed hysterically, telling her that she was a terrible liar. He then shifted the topic, asking if they should go to the house that Celia's father had prepared for them. Celia refused, saying she would only go if he carried her all the way there. I guess being flat-chested automatically makes you disabled. Having no choice, Alba bowed to her whim. It seemed like his life in Kriana Academy was going to be full of trouble, right from the start. Not long after, Alba and Celia arrived at the house prepared for them. Alba was the first to recognize it, while Celia marveled at the fact that it looked bigger than their mountain cabin. She noticed a vegetable garden, and she suggested growing vegetables again. Meanwhile, Alba smirked at the thought that they were given a 2-story house with its own garden in the heart of the royal capital, where people from all over the world gathered. He realized the place they were staying at was expensive. But then again, he had expected this from Celia's father. Later on, they explored the place, and it was complete with their necessities. Alba found his room on the 2nd floor, and he confirmed it was a good house. Later that day, Celia told Alba that she didn't receive money from her father. Alba thought she was given some living expenses along with the house, but it turned out that her father wanted her to earn by herself, as she wanted an ordinary life. Alba smiled at the thought, realizing that her father was not just spoiling her, but genuinely trying to help her get independent. Just then, Celia happily informed Alba that her father would give her money if things got too hard. Hearing that, Alba was convinced that her father was still too soft. He then informed Celia that they didn't have much money, so he had to find work immediately. Celia told him he didn't have to, as she would earn for them. Alba was surprised, so Celia explained that her father arranged for her to work at the church. The saintess had divine blessings bestowed upon her by the goddess. Oracle healing averted disasters thanks to the goddess's warnings. However, no one knew when the goddess's voice would be heard. Healing power was a high-level healing magic that cured all wounds and illnesses. Troubled sick believers gathered, hoping to benefit from the saintess's power. Celia received a portion of the donation from those believers. Alba now understood that Celia took this job with the pure intention of helping everyone. However, the reason she was sent on harsh pilgrimages since childhood wasn't it. Just then, Alba realized that her presence drew massive donations to the church. He guessed that someone greedy must have planned it. The saintess was a gold mine. Suddenly, Celia noticed he was lost in thought, so she asked what was wrong. Alba quickly snapped out of his nasty thoughts, reassuring Celia not to worry. He then told her he would also work, so she shouldn't worry. Celia was confused, as she had already insisted on earning for them both. Alba explained that letting a girl do all the work while the guy did nothing was a blow to his pride. Celia pointed out that they lived together, so it must be fine. Alba didn't budge, and he told her to save that kind of devotion for her future husband. Annoyed, Celia beat him up without warning. Just then, tears started forming in her eyes, and she ran away before they rolled down her cheeks. As she headed for the door, she told Alba she didn't care about him anymore, and that he should do whatever he wanted. Confused, Alba called out to her, asking where she was going. She said she was eating dinner by herself, leaving Alba utterly dumbfounded. Later that day, Alba relaxed on his bed, convinced he hadn't done anything wrong. Right now, he must be her companion. She already had a proper match, the real protagonist of Kriana fantasy, Eurus. He was handsome, a master of sword and magic, a true saint, and the complete opposite of a villain like Alba. On top of that, all the heroines in the game fall for Yuri. That meant there was no reason for Alba to stay with Celia when that happened. It had been 3 months since they met. Back when he rescued her, she complimented his lovely cabin. Celia asked if she was really allowed to live there, and Alba confirmed it, adding that she could stay as long as she liked. At that moment, he wanted her to believe that she wasn't the saintess, but a normal girl. She found that working in the fields was fun, and Alba agreed. Freshly harvested vegetables tasted great. When Alba taught her how to cook, she found it hard, yet he told her to just practice. One time he showed her a Goemon bath, but she wasn't familiar with it since it wasn't common in this world. At night, they watched the stars, and she felt like she was being pulled into the night sky. It was the first time in Alba's life that he felt relaxed. If he said he wouldn't miss her when she left, he would be lying. If Celia moved forward with the life that was meant for her, then that would be fine. He would be able to avoid his death flags after all. Later that night, Celia knocked on Alba's door, apologizing for what had happened earlier. She found him sleeping, so she whispered her gratitude to him. It was because of him that she was there. She then covered him with a blanket, thanking him once again. The next morning, Alba woke up with no recollection of how he had dozed off. Just then, he noticed a bag of food and a note from Celia. She said she was sorry for what happened the other day, and she bought him some food to eat. She was now headed to the church to fulfill her duties. Alba smiled as he read the note, thanking Celia. He quickly munched on the hamburger she got him. Impressed by how good it was, he reckoned it was a game world, but he was glad they had familiar food. As he ate, he realized that since Celia had gone to the church, he must go earn money too. After that, Alba headed to the Adventurers Guild, the mediators that manage and assign jobs from all over the kingdom. From simple deliveries to dangerous missions like exterminating monsters called magic beasts, there was a variety of requests to choose from. The ones who took on those requests, the tough folks who gathered for money or fame, were called adventurers. In the game Kriana Fantasy, adventuring wasn't necessary to complete the story, but now, since it was real life, there was no reason not to do it. After all, it was the fastest way to earn money. When Alba arrived, he checked the quests available and found one that demanded the extermination of a gigantic magic beast. The success reward was 5 million curia. He had never fought a magic beast before, but with the strength that he had built over the past 3 years, it should be possible. Suddenly, 2 adventurers approached him, teasing him about his audacity to select quests from the 5-star quest board. They believed there was no way that a newbie like him was already a 5-star ranker. They started laughing hysterically, much to Alba's annoyance. Rookie adventurers could only accept simple 1-star requests, and their star rank can rise based on their quest completion count and contribution to the guild. One couldn't get big rewards without raising their ranks. After that incident, Alba headed to the front desk, where he was greeted by the guild's receptionist. She welcomed him, informing him he was at the 1-star rank reception. Alba politely took a quest, then went on his way. His first quest was herb collection, which was quite boring. However, he was a beginner, so it couldn't be helped. He had to start small and slowly raise his rank. He was supposed to go to the Western Forest, but since he didn't have money for a carriage, he decided to run. Without wasting a second, Alba darted towards his destination with unbelievable speed, shocking those around him. Like a bolt of lightning, he was undeniably faster than a car. Elsewhere, 2 students walked through the city streets. One of them complained about living in a dorm, pointing out how much of a drag it was. The other replied that it couldn't be helped, as the rent in the royal capital was more expensive. Nevertheless, it was still luxurious that they got to attend Kriana Academy despite being commoners. Just then, a strong gust of wind passed right by them, shocking them both. The girl frantically pulled her skirt down, while the boy was in awe of what had just happened. The girl asked what he was referring to, yet he didn't answer. She then called out to the boy, whose name was Eurus, but he brushed it off and said it was nothing. He then urged Alice, the girl, to resume their task. Eurus pointed out that Alice bought too much stuff, but she only reasoned that girls needed all sorts of things. Elsewhere, Alba abruptly stopped in his tracks, trying to recall if he really just passed by Eurus. Alba earned his keep by taking on quests, and this time he decided to gather herbs deep in the Nebe forest. As soon as he completed his task, he easily jumped off the cliff, eager to get home. He had lived deep in those mountains for 3 years now, so it was all a breeze. Not long after, he returned to the Adventurers Guild. The attendant was shocked to see him back so early, as it had only been 3 hours since he accepted the quest. Alba remained nonchalant, merely presenting the herbs. The attendant mentioned it was a 6-hour trip, but Alba played it cool and simply answered that he ran really fast. Instead of being relieved, the attendant was even more shocked to hear that he ran. She then cleared her throat, focusing on handing Alba his reward for completing the quest. He received 10,000 curia in 3 hours for a 1-star quest, but if he wanted to earn more, he had to raise his rank quickly. As he left the guild, he wondered how Celia was doing. Meanwhile, at the church, Celia presided over a mass. She asked the goddess, their mother, to guide the wanderers and strays to the right path. The swarm of people before her was moved by Celia's prayers, and they asked her to bless and have mercy on them. Their eyes gleamed with hope, screaming to the top of their lungs. As Celia basked in the holy mass, a nearby priest praised the saintess, seeing how her followers were overjoyed. Celia ended up earning over 10 times more than Alba in the same amount of time. Her prayers come with ad revenue. Elsewhere, Alba treated himself to some ramen. As he slurped his order, he was pleased to know that the capital had ramen shops. However, the capital was also home to the Ereshias, Alba's family. As he ate, he guessed that his brother should have inherited the house now. Since he ran away from home, his family instantly became strangers to him, so he didn't really know what was going on. Even so, they never denied the rumors that he died, and that almost certainly meant they didn't think much of him. Finally, Alba sipped the last bit of his ramen, revealing a motivational message at the bottom of the bowl. At that moment, he thought about the mountains, which were different from the capital, where many people knew him. He needed to stay alert so that he wouldn't run into people he knew, like Elena. With his meal finished, Alba set out into town, covering his face as he entered the streets. He couldn't let his guard down because no one knew what could lead to a death flag. Elsewhere, a rogue horse wreaked havoc in the city streets. As everyone scrambled to get away, a girl accidentally tripped. Overcome by fear, she could only scream as the furious horse dashed toward her. Just then, a blue flash zapped through the streets, shocking everyone present, even the horse. Even the horse said nothing after seeing that blue flash. As the dust settled, Alba asked the girl if she was okay. To her shock, Alba was standing atop the horse, which was now knocked unconscious. Alba asked if she wasn't hurt, and the girl stuttered as she said yes. He then gave the horse a pat on the head, apologizing for knocking it out. The girl thanked Alba, then suddenly pointed out that his face was familiar, as if she had seen him before. Alba stuttered, thinking that the situation was bad. If she were a noble, it wouldn't be strange for her to know the Duke's second son, Alba. Before he could explain himself, the crowd suddenly gathered around him, cheering for him for being amazing and cool. Alba quickly tightened his hood around his head, reasoning that he couldn't ignore the girl's scream, and so he stepped in to help. He grew anxious, worried that if he kept standing out, there would be a chance that someone would recognize him. Suddenly, a knight appeared, asking what the commotion was about. The girl was starstruck, realizing they were graced by the presence of Duke Roy Eresia. Meanwhile, Alba was stunned by Roy's sudden appearance. Roy turned to the girl, asking if she was from the Lupica barony. The girl confirmed it, introducing herself as Mina. She mentioned that they had met briefly at his succession ceremony. She then introduced Alba, saying that he was the man who saved her from the runaway horse. Meanwhile, Alba, who overheard the succession of Roy, realized that this was his character's brother. As the one in charge of public order and a friend of the Lupica family, Roy expressed his gratitude to Alba. However, Alba remained frozen, refusing to face his brother. He absolutely couldn't let this man find out who he was. Roy was unamused, asking if Alba hadn't received his thanks. Meanwhile, Mina awkwardly waited for Alba's answer. When Roy accused him of being rude, Alba was left with no choice but to respond, downplaying his good deed. He quickly put on his mask, hurriedly excusing himself. However, Roy suddenly called out his name, making Alba nervous. Roy mentioned that Alba's voice reminded him of his foolish brother, so he asked to take a look at his face. Alba knew the situation was bad, so he reasoned that his face wasn't even worth showing to a duke. Annoyed, Roy argued that it was for him to decide. He then forced Alba to look at him. Alba refused to move, making everyone anxious about the growing tension. Suddenly, someone appeared, mentioning that she had finally found Al. Everyone was shocked to see that Elena Persia had come to join them. Elena greeted Roy with a good day, while Alba only stood there awkwardly, realizing that two people knew about him now. The one in front of him was a tiger, while the one behind him was a wolf. Pressured, Alba asked himself what he should do. Roy suddenly asked Elena if she knew Alba, and she confirmed it. She explained he was her friend, a squire in training named Al. She reasoned he was late for their meeting, so she came to find him. Alba remained quiet, mentally asking himself why Elena called him her friend. Elena then teased Alba, mentioning how he helped someone and showed up late. It didn't sound like a knight in training at all. This made Alba even more confused, wondering what the meaning was behind Elena's actions. Meanwhile, Roy seemed disappointed that the man was Al, not Alba. He's Al, short for allegedly not your brother. Elena believed there was no way for him to be Alba, as she wouldn't mistake him for anyone else. She was once his fiancée after all, and he was supposed to be dead. Roy flashed a skeptical look, yet Elena didn't break her act. Finally, Roy yielded, knowing that his foolish brother, who disgraced the Eresia name, was no more. He then apologized to Al, who tensely replied that it was all right. Roy announced that his brother was considered dead. Then he turned to Mina, volunteering to escort her home. Mina then expressed her gratitude for Alba, and she peacefully left with Roy and a few other guards. Once they were gone, Alba thanked Elena, noting that because of her, he got away with trouble. He quickly tried to leave, unsure of what had just happened, but happy his cover wasn't blown. It was best to just leave. However, before he could go, Elena's sword greeted his face, shocking him. Elena smirked, saying they needed to talk. She called him by his real name, but Alba played dumb and asked what she was talking about. Elena remained serious, threatening that if he kept playing dumb, she would tell the Duke about his real identity. Alba trembled at the thought that Elena knew everything after all. Left with no choice, he promised to explain himself. Alba cursed in his head, realizing he was already in trouble and he hadn't even started school yet. Life, however, didn't pause for his crisis. Roy walked Mina home, Celia led the mass, and Eurus and Alice continued on their way to school. One by one, these people had started entering Alba's life. And now, here he was, running from the destined death flags. The Academy's entrance ceremony had finally come, and all of the students were congratulated for being the youth who would carry on their future. All the students attended, including Alba and all the death flags he was actively avoiding. The principal proudly announced that a bright light was shining upon everyone's destiny, guided by the goddess of destiny herself. Celia was amused as the principal seemed energetic. On the other hand, Alba remembered this old geezer. In the game, one could ask him for hints on how to progress. Nevertheless, Alba and Celia both managed to enter Kriana Academy without any issues. However, Alba was cautious, knowing that this academy was where the real death flags started appearing. There were 5 routes, each with its own heroine. All of them were related to Alba's doom. Alba was already involved in Celia and Elena's roots, and it would be terrible if he piled up even more death flags on top. One of the 3 remaining heroines was the princess. She was treated as a secret character, and she wouldn't be encountered in the academy, even by chance. Given that, she shouldn't be a problem. Then there was the protagonist's childhood friend, Alice. Additionally, a disciple of the sage, Lily, was also included. They were in the same grade as Alba, so he had to be careful. Then there was another person apart from the 5 heroines he had to be extra careful about, and he was close by. It was none other than the main protagonist of Kriana Fantasy, Eurus. After all, the villain would almost always die in the protagonist's hands. Just then, Eurus looked at Alba, who was already staring. Alba quickly looked away, shocking Celia, who was standing next to him. She awkwardly called out his name, but his mind was preoccupied with thoughts of staying away from Eurus. Meanwhile, Alice asked Eurus what the matter was, but he said it was nothing. The situation was a reminder to Alba not to draw attention to himself. After the ceremony, everyone went to their respective classrooms. Alba and Celia went to the unicorn section, where they were immediately surrounded by their classmates. Alba realized that his plan of not standing out was impossible, as he was always with the Saintess. One of the students was wondering why the Saintess was at the academy, while another pointed out her cuteness. As Celia slowly grew more anxious, Alba couldn't help but think that at this rate, the normal academy life she wished for would be difficult to achieve. He wondered what Celia would do. Just then, Celia spoke, telling everyone that she was pleased to meet them. She also introduced herself as Celia Margaret. Like everyone there, she was also attending Kriana Academy as a first-year student in the unicorn class. She asked them not to treat her as the Saintess, but as a classmate, and she wanted them to call her Celia without any honorifics. Everyone was surprised, and in an instant she seized everyone's hearts. Alba smiled as he observed, realizing that Celia was amazing, and that he had nothing to worry about. Suddenly someone asked Celia who Alba was, making everyone's attention shift toward him. One of the students claimed to have seen him somewhere before, while another felt like they had bad memories of him. Alba could only sit there in silence, aware of the eyes glued on him. There were many nobles at the academy. Although his hair color and personality were completely different, they would most likely figure out who he was. Just then, Celia clung to his arm, announcing to everyone that Alba was her friend. He was the Holy Knight's apprentice, and she made sure to address him as Al. She added that Al could be pretty shy, but she hoped they would get along with him too. Alba smiled awkwardly, knowing that her excuse was still impossible. She couldn't just make people get along with a fishy guy like him out of nowhere. Celia asked if they were okay with that, and surprisingly, everyone said it was nice to meet Al. Alba was shocked, realizing that the power of the Saintess was truly terrifying. Sis is a cult leader in training. Celia then winked at Alba and he thanked her. Just then, someone said it was nice to meet Alba, and it was none other than Elena. She was amused to know that he was also in the unicorn class, which made them classmates. Everyone suddenly started exchanging whispers, fawning over Elena Persia. One guy thought she was very pretty and wished she would date him, but another called him out. They shouldn't say stupid stuff like that, as Elena's swordsmanship could put the Royal Knight's order to shame. Meanwhile, Celia recalled that they met Elena the other day, and Alba informed her that he told Elena the truth. She knew he was Alba, as she used to be his former fiancée after all. Suddenly, Elena spoke to Celia, apologizing for all the trouble she had caused her the other day. However, Celia was still spiraling, distraught at the thought that this woman was once Alba's fiancée. Later that day, Alba and Elena spoke privately. Alba couldn't believe that he would meet his former fiancée once again. Elena then talked about the reason why Alba disappeared 3 years ago, which was caused by him being fed up with his family. Because of that, he ran away. Alba confirmed that he had completely abandoned his previous life and had been reborn anew. Alba didn't think that she would believe him if he told her he had been reincarnated, much less make her understand that he might die due to all the death flags. Just then, Elena shared that 3 years ago, she received a letter stating that the Aricia family wished to break off the engagement, and it came without any sort of explanation. There were rumors that Alba had disappeared or died, and some even said that the family had their problem child assassinated. Alba awkwardly laughed, as people surely talked. He went from fiancé to urban legend real quick. Behind closed doors, Elena's family was overjoyed that the ties to such a hoodlum were severed. Hearing that, Alba jokingly said that it was good to hear that she hated him too. Elena agreed, making sure to point out that he was a crude, filthy, womanizing scumbag. She had pondered killing him personally sometimes. However, when she thought about him being dead, she started crying. Then she suddenly remembered something from her childhood. Back then, Alba saw her crying and he asked what the matter was. Elena shared that her father criticized her sword style and personality, calling it too manly. He had also told her to act like a woman. Before she could cry even more, Alba asked who cared whether she was like a man or a woman. She was Elena, and that alone was enough in itself. The young Elena's face lit up, clearly touched by his words. Elena certainly didn't hate him back then. Alba was shocked, realizing that a part of the setting that didn't appear in the game suggested that Alba wasn't originally a bad person. Elena then continued, pointing out that Alba was now the bodyguard of the saintess he saved, and just earlier he put himself in danger to stop a runaway horse. It seemed that he really was reborn. Alba laughed nervously, unable to say that he actually was an entirely different person. Just then, Elena said that it was almost like he was back to how he was back then. Alba seemed to be confused, so Elena quickly said it was nothing. She then shifted the topic and asked him what he was going to do about the academy. Many children of noble families hated him there. Alba didn't know, and he only hoped that his identity wouldn't get exposed. Elena promised to help him keep it a secret, shocking Alba. He asked if she really meant that, then he thanked her. Elena played it cool and told him not to worry about it. However, in exchange for her silence, she wanted him to help her too. Alba asked what for, so Elena revealed that she wanted him to take care of the endless parade of suitors that she had to deal with ever since their engagement was annulled. As expected from that statement, Alba was horrified. She basically said, "You're my personal pest control now, babe." At present, Alba told Elena not to forget about their promise, and she told him the same thing. Meanwhile, Celia was going downhill, anxious about what kind of promise Alba was making with his former fiancé. Just then, she yelled out Elena's name and the latter asked what she wanted. Celia told Elena to call her without any honorifics because they were classmates. Elena agreed, and she told her to call her by her name as well without any honorifics. Being taller than Celia, Elena gave her a pat on the head, saying that it was nice to meet her. Celia seemed pissed at first, but she was too dazed by Elena's beauty that she ended up saying it was also nice to meet her. Soon enough, they were in awe of each other. Just then, Celia asked Alba if he and Elena were keeping a secret from her. However, Alba said this wasn't the time nor the place to talk about it, but he promised he wasn't trying to keep a secret from her. Celia expressed her frustration, which only annoyed Alba and made Elena laugh. Just then, a buff guy approached them, commenting that Alba had both Elena and Celia. It was like he had a flower in both hands. However, Alba was warned not to get carried away, as he was just a damn holy knight's apprentice. Alba asked who he was, but the guy only insulted him. The fact that he didn't even know who he was showed what a bastard hick he was. Elena then turned to Alba, informing him that this was Walby, the eldest son of Count Walgot. He was one of the people Elena wanted Alba to help her with. Bro's name sounds like a discontinued Pokemon plush. They had made an agreement after all, for Alba to take care of the endless parade of suitors. Just then, Walby bowed before Elena, asking her how she was doing. He also complimented her for being beautiful like always. However, Elena greeted him with hostility, saying that he never changed. Walby then said that although House Walgot only had the status of a mere count, they were still high-ranking nobles. He assured her that they would make for an excellent match for House Persia. Elena was uninterested, and she warned him not to start his marriage proposals in the academy. Hearing their exchange, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. Just then, Walby asked for Elena's forgiveness, as he simply couldn't let the chance slip now that they were classmates. She was a beautiful, blooming flower of the Persia family, a lineage long graced with royal blood. She was worth so much more than she thought she was. It would be an honor for any noble to take her hand in marriage. He then asked if she didn't want to accompany him in this life as it would be most beneficial to both their families. Suddenly, Alba chimed in, bluntly asking what Walby was prattling about. Walby was taken aback, yet Alba pressed on. He wasn't saying this because Elena wanted him to, but it was because he hated these kinds of people. He scoffed at Walby's monologue about family and honor, and he told him he wasn't suited for her at all. Walby angrily asked what he had just said, but Alba didn't acknowledge him and only went to say that he didn't understand the worth of the person called Elena after all. Walby was infuriated, while the rest of the class gasped in shock. Celia, on the other hand, was rooting for Alba. Meanwhile, Elena was reminded of the time when Alba empowered her for who she was, especially when he said that her existence alone was enough. She was touched by his words, yet she could only mutter his name. Just then, Walby screamed that Alba was a bastard, and he couldn't believe that the honor of House Walcott was besmirched. It was just unbelievable. Suddenly, he tossed a handkerchief in the air, and he dared Alba to catch it. As the handkerchief fell, he nonchalantly caught it, asking Walby what it meant. Walby only crossed his hands on his chest, saying that it was a duel. Everyone was shocked, including Alba. Alba could have just blown his nose with it and walked away. Alba was confused, and he asked what was going on. Celia, on the other hand, hyped him up and told him to go for it. However, Alba was annoyed that he was recognized again. He was trying to lay low, but now, the whole school was watching him. Kriana Academy had a school rule wherein all matches leading to death were forbidden. However, duels to protect one's dignity and honor were permitted. To challenge a duel, one must present the school-designated handkerchief, and if the opponent were to accept it, then the duel would be official. Duels were permitted only in the Academy's dueling arena, and it required a designated witness. Soon after, the duel began, and the witness cat, Kate Sith, introduced himself. They were now about to begin the duel between Al and Walby. The arena was packed, and the students cheered on their own biases. Celia couldn't believe that Alba actually accepted the duel, and she was very proud of him. Meanwhile, Elena warned Alba that fleeing a duel was a disgrace, so he should prepare himself for a consequence worse than death. Alba was getting stressed out, knowing that the situation was not about that at all. He didn't even know that there were rules for dueling. Just then, Walby told him that if he was planning to back out, now was the last chance for a country bumpkin like him. Suddenly, Kate Sith told Al and Walby that they must declare what dignity and honor were at stake. In the game, the dueling system was a side event unrelated to the main story. It also had nothing to do with Alba's death flags. Just then, Walby told Alba to swear it. If he lost, he must stay out of Elena's business, and while Walby was at it, he would make the Saintess his woman too. Alba kept silent, yet in his mind he thought that if it truly had nothing to do with his flags, then he would accept it. However, if he won, Walby must stay away from them. Walby only scoffed, convinced that he was going to win. Finally, both parties had declared their oaths, and now, Kate Sith announced the start of the duel. Everyone cheered, eager to see the outcome of this match. Meanwhile, Celia asked Elena if Walby was really that strong. Elena explained that Walby was known as the Flame Sorcerer, and when it came to magic, he was the best in their year. In the ring, Walby called out to the Crimson Inferno, the breaker of the very laws of this world. He commanded it to annihilate the obstacle before him, and with raging flames he wanted everything to be reduced to scorched earth. Not the Sailor Moon transformation speech. Alba was surprised that Walby was chanting. It was a fire attribute spell, a high-level magic chant. Just then, Walby released a massive attack called the Hell Flame, hurling it toward Alba without remorse. Alba's eyes widened in shock, and within a split second, a loud explosion occurred. Everyone was shocked, and Celia worriedly called out to Alba. As the smoke settled, Walby laughed proudly, asking how it felt to be burned to a crisp. He then asked Kate Sith if it would be a crime if he actually killed Alba in this duel. Kate Sith said no, as he was there as the witness for the precious students, so that they wouldn't die unnecessarily. Walby's eyes widened in disbelief, knowing what this indicated. Kate Sith smirked, as there was no need for him to step in. Just then, Alba appeared, saying that Walby had just made some incredible flames. Walby was shocked to see that Alba survived his attack. Alba suddenly mocked Walby for chanting a spell that was full of openings. Walby called Alba a bastard, and he asked when he went behind him. Kate Sith chuckled, impressed by how fast Alba was. Meanwhile, the crowd went wild at Alba's instant movement, and they couldn't fathom how he was able to do that. Celia called Alba amazing, while Elena was stunned into silence. She recalled that movement. Back then, he instantly dodged her sword strike, and he even managed to catch it because of that speed. That movement was almost like lightning. A mysterious girl from the bleachers had the same thought. Alba didn't generate it. He transformed his very body into the phenomenon of lightning. Magic was the act of adding a phenomenon into this world, and Alba added a phenomenon within himself. Actually, he became the phenomenon himself. The rest of the crowd was smitten by the mysterious girl, but her mind was preoccupied. She was amazed that Alba acted without an incantation, which was impossible. She thought it was complicated and dangerous, and she wondered how many people there could even comprehend it. She was curious about Al, especially his power. It was on the level of her master, the sage. However, she vowed not to lose. This mysterious girl was none other than Lily, one of the heroines and a disciple of the sage. Meanwhile, Walby was infuriated. He swore not to let Alba get away next time. Once again he recited his chant, but Alba reminded him that the spell left him wide open. Walby kept on chanting, and as he did, Alba took the initiative to use his lightning speed, making use of the opening. Mr. Spoken Word got yeeted mid-poem. In a snap, he came face to face with Walby, landing an attack before he could make sense of anything. Walby was sent flying from the sheer force, and he crashed horribly. Alba feigned innocence, wondering if he had overdone it. Just then, Kate Sith announced that Walby was out of the ring, making Alba the winner. Everyone cheered for Alba, especially Celia and Elena. Meanwhile, the Kate nurses tended to the unconscious Walby. Amid the crowd, Alice thought that Alba was amazing. He could use magic like that without an incantation, and it was so insane that she loved it. It was a good idea to come to the duel, and she asked Eurus if he thought the same thing. Eurus smiled and agreed she was right. Alice was still in awe because Alba took Walby down in one hit, but Eurus corrected her. Alba didn't even hit Walby, he just thrusted his hand forward. He only approached his opponent and thrusted his arm forward, and he didn't actually make contact. But when a movement like that was performed at that lightning-fast speed, it would create a massive shockwave, and that was what sent his opponent flying. Alice was shocked to know that Alba was seriously insane, and Eurus agreed, noting that he was incredible. However, Alice thought that Alba wasn't the only one insane there. She just saw Al move in a flash of blue light, and that was all she could make out. It should be the same for every other student there, but Eurus saw everything. She then playfully asked Eurus if he could win against Alba, which somehow confused him. Alice pointed out that he could see Alba's movements, but Eurus only said that seeing something didn't mean he could react to it. Alice pressed on, and she asked if this meant he would lose. Eurus said there was no reason for them to fight in the first place, but Alice didn't yield and kept on asking. Finally, Eurus said that if Alba ever made someone he cared about suffer, then he wouldn't lose. Meanwhile, Celia and Elena approached Alba. As Celia expected, he was strong. Elena complimented Alba as well, saying that she was truly surprised. She asked when Alba acquired such power, so he explained that he was training back when he lived deep in the mountains. He was the only one in this world who knew about Alba's true talent. In the game, Alba was a character strong enough to become the final boss. So if a character like him trained seriously and leveled up, he wouldn't even lose to the protagonist. He should be able to become one of the strongest characters. And he knew it. He wasn't wrong. He truly was strong. Elena then pointed out that Alba hated hard work. And it was ironic that he was training. It was like he was a completely different person. Alba reminded her that he had already said it before. He was reborn as a new person. Just then, Celia asked Elena if the old Alba was really a bad person, and she confirmed it, emphasizing how he was the worst scum of all the scums. Elena calling him scum of scums like it's a Yu-Gi-Oh card. He was the worst kind of trash. Celia, however, said that Alba was the most wonderful person to her. Alba was shocked as she had just called him by his real name. Elena was quick to call her out, and she reminded Celia to refer to Alba as Al. Alba awkwardly admitted that he had overdone it a little. Anyone who caused trouble for Elena deserved to be sent flying. However, Celia told him not to worry. If worse came to worst, she would just heal him with her healing powers. Alba laughed, amused by the reliable saintess. Just then, Elena thanked Alba for fighting the duel. Alba played it cool, reminding Elena that he had made a promise that he would save her. Elena nonchalantly agreed, though she was blushing. The duel had nothing to do with Alba's death flag, so it was fine, or so he thought. His thinking was naive, for fate was steadily moving forward in places he couldn't see, sweeping up all the key players one after another. One morning, Celia called Alba, informing him that breakfast was ready. When he didn't come down right away, she went upstairs and sat on him. Celia out here cosplaying as sleep paralysis demon. Alba greeted her with good morning, but he complained about not being able to breathe. Celia winked at him and said that she did it because he wouldn't wake up at all. After that, they went downstairs to have breakfast. Alba complimented Celia for her cooking, which had significantly improved. Celia then replied that she did get a lot of practice in the mountains. Alba volunteered to handle dinner that night, and Celia requested some of his nikujaga. After that, they quickly brushed their teeth and got ready for school. Celia reminded Alba not to forget his lunch, and he thanked her for it. Alba seemed surprised that she had prepared a bento box for him, which made Celia ask if there was something wrong. Alba said it was nothing, and so Celia urged him to start leaving or they would be late. As they walked through the busy streets, Celia mentioned that academy classes were fun, and she asked Alba if he agreed. He wondered if she really found it fun because it was just really hard for him. Not long after, they passed by Elena, who greeted them with a good day. Together, They walked through the gates of Kriana Academy. Alba's life at the academy had been peaceful. Ever since the duel on the first day, nothing that could be called a death flag had happened. Just then, in the middle of class, Celia whispered to Alba that he had to pay attention. Elena, on the other hand, answered the professor's questions excellently. It seemed that both heroines were living their lives without any trouble. The other students didn't come near Alba, which somehow convinced him that he really did go a little too overboard during the duel. They were completely terrified of him. Thanks to that, he was not getting involved in any death flags. He guessed he should be thankful for that, but he felt a little lonely. After that class, the bell rang, meaning it was time for lunch. Elena approached Celia in the cafeteria, suggesting that they have lunch together. Just then, she noticed that Alba wasn't there, so she asked about it. Celia thought Alba was unbelievable. He ate his bento all by himself before the break even started, and he even complimented the delicious meal. Celia was annoyed, thinking that Alba was taking a nap somewhere. Elena was a bit disappointed, thinking that he had changed. However, he was still the same delinquent. Alba knew what the lunch event meant. Having lunch with a heroine would raise their favorability. Lunch was an essential event to get closer to them. Alba felt bad for Celia, but he needed to avoid doing things that might trigger a death flag. Just then, someone approached Alba, who was napping peacefully under a tree. It was a girl asking if she could join him for lunch. Alba's eyes widened in shock as he recognized who it was. The girl thanked him again for helping her the other day. Alba recalled that the girl was the one he saved from the rogue horse. He didn't seem to remember her name, so the girl reminded him that she was Mina. She was so surprised to learn that he was in the duel, and he also happened to be a first-year student at the same academy. Alba remained nonchalant, saying he was surprised as well. Just then, Mina handed him a bento box, which confused him. Mina explained that she wanted to show her gratitude, so she made him a bento. She wanted him to have it if he liked. Alba's eyes widened as he realized that this was a lunch event. However, he might be wrong as he wasn't familiar with Mina's character. There was no one named Mina among the heroines, which meant that this girl was a side character. Mina apologized if she bothered him, and she almost wanted to leave. However, Alba took the bento and thanked her. He gladly accepted it, making Mina smile. If this girl were a side character, then there shouldn't be any problem with eating her bento. They sat together, and Alba complimented the delicious meal. Mina couldn't believe it, but she was happy to hear it. She kept addressing Alba with "Sir," so Alba told her to drop it because they were classmates after all. Mina agreed, and she promised to call him Al. Just then, Alba warned Mina not to get too close to him, so Mina asked why. He explained that if she did, people might ignore her too, which was a drawback. However, Mina said that this was a decision that she made, and she didn't care what others thought or how they saw her. Hearing that, Alba was caught off guard by her strong will and earnest eyes. He also guessed that she was a strong-willed character. Just then, Mina mentioned that there were benefits too. Alba was confused, so she explained that if she got friendly with him, maybe he would save her again. Alba said she was right, and he promised to do everything he could to help her. Just then, someone approached them, asking Alba if he was having fun. It was Celia, looking at him like a psycho. She mentioned that he didn't want to have lunch with her, yet he was hitting on another girl. Girlfriend is looking at him like she's already planned his funeral catering. Alba was shocked to see Celia, and he reasoned that it was all a misunderstanding. He argued that he wasn't hitting on the girl. Just then, Mina told Alba that she was going to head back to the classroom. Mina also bowed before Celia and excused herself, which made Celia feel awkward. As Mina passed by, she finally knew what the Saintess looked like. When she had finally left, Alba explained to Celia that the girl was Mina, a classmate, and he had helped her in town a while back. Celia finally recalled that she was the one he had saved from the runaway horse. Alba guessed that Mina was from the Lupica barony, and Elena knew about her too. She was also participating in the next event, which was finally starting. Kriana Fantasy had its first major in-game event, the youth field trip. The headmaster wanted all the students to deepen their bonds with their classmates. They had to fight magic beasts in the Neabi forest while gathering medicinal herbs. It would serve as a tutorial to teach the player how to battle. Only weak magic beasts would appear, so there was no danger. However, this was a major event. Depending on the choices in this event, one could deepen their bond with one of the heroines and proceed down the path to a death flag. Not long after, the said event had finally come. The whole class arrived at their destination for the Neab Forest field trip. Celia thought that fighting a magic beast was a little scary, but Alba reassured her it was fine. Everyone was there, and they were only weak magic beasts. Elena also told Celia not to worry, as she was there. Just then, the teacher told everyone to follow behind him. He also reassured them not to be worried because he was not the kind of teacher who would lose to a magic beast. However, Alba knew that in the next event, the teacher would find himself in a situation where he could no longer laugh. Alba's really watching his teacher walk into an obituary speedrun. There were 4 choices in the game: rescue and treat the students alongside Celia, fight the magic beasts alongside Elena, rescue Alice, the original protagonist's childhood friend who got separated, or the last one, which Alba couldn't remember. Among those 4 choices, the protagonist was bound to appear. The choice that Alba should make was still a mystery, and so everyone fulfilled their destined roles. Celia and some other students appreciated some wildlife, Elena slayed some monsters, Alice accompanied Eurus while Lily cozied up under a tree to read a book. Just then, the group was warned that they were about to enter the magic beast's habitat. The teacher told them to stay calm and not act rashly. Suddenly, he felt a strange presence coming from the shadows before them. He already had a bad guess at what it was, and true enough, the greatest horror was unleashed. A group of rabid monsters emerged from the shadows, coming towards them as a stampede. As the monsters came closer, the teacher desperately told everyone to get back. Celia was shocked to see magic beasts, while Elena told everyone to calm down. Lily, who was peacefully reading her book, felt a strange presence. Meanwhile, Alice was separated from Eurus. Eurus was with the rest of the class, ready to strike down the monsters. Alba, on the other hand, stood his ground, knowing that the plot had started. The battle event had finally begun, the stampede of magic beasts. Just then, the teacher told everyone to calm down and get out of the forest while he acted as the decoy. Bro said stay calm, while the entire forest turned into a Pokemon raid. This was the first in-game event, the field study. The only one who knew about the real scenario was the reincarnated one, Alba. This only meant that things were about to get chaotic. Elsewhere, Celia was being assisted by her fellow classmates. Elena drew her sword, telling everyone to stay calm and get behind her. On the other side of the forest, Lily carefully explored on her own, while Alice looked for Eurus. As all of this happened, Alba reflected on his actions during that event, which would affect his affinity with the heroines. The closer he got to the heroines, the closer he got to his death flag. He had to avoid that at all costs. In that case, he must choose the most efficient path, which is to do what the original villain Alba did. In the plot, he did not waste his time on that event. With that in mind, Alba decided to abandon everyone and run away. Elsewhere, Celia tried to escape with the other students. However, as they ran for their lives, they got attacked by a ferocious bear. Celia screamed while another student called out to her in concern. She anxiously wondered where Alba had gone, but all she could do was scream his name. Just then, Alba appeared, reassuring Celia that he had arrived. He forcefully attacked the bear with a strong kick, sending it flying. Alba smirked as he saw the damage of his attack, while Celia and the other students smiled widely. Man pulled up like, "Don't worry, I do my own stunts." As the bear suffered in pain, Alba told Celia and the other students to get out of the forest right away. Celia thanked him, but she couldn't leave just yet because one of the students they were with was injured. Celia quickly used her healing powers, asking the goddess to help her. She was scared, but she knew her power could save anyone. That was why she wanted to ask Al to save everyone. She believed in him, and she knew he could do it with his power. Alba clenched his fist, knowing that she was right. This wasn't about logic. He didn't give a damn about death flags at that moment. He was just trying to save himself, which was pretty pathetic. With that, Alba told Celia to leave it to him. Before they parted ways, Celia made sure to tell him to be careful. Meanwhile, Elena battled with a giant ant. She skillfully used her swordsmanship talent, refusing to yield to the beast before her. Not long after, she successfully slashed its body into pieces. She then told the other students to hurry up and get out of the area, and they urgently thanked her and left. Just then, something erupted from the ground, shocking Elena. 2 more gigantic ants emerged, ready to attack. However, before Elena could fall into danger, Alba arrived to aid her. He asked if she was all right, and she stuttered as she said yes. She even warned him not to underestimate her. Alba winked at her and said, "Of course," as he knew what she was capable of. However, he reminded her not to let her guard down. Just then, he informed Elena that he was heading deeper into the forest, and he was leaving the area to her. Elena agreed with his plan and told him to be careful. Alba knew that this event would end once the boss was defeated. The boss was in the deepest part of the woods, so Alba hurriedly headed there using his lightning speed. As he traveled, he couldn't help but notice that something was bothering him. It was the type of magic beasts. That event was supposed to be a tutorial battle, and the magic beasts that were supposed to appear were grunts. However, right now, the forest was filled with tough magic beasts that couldn't be seen until the middle of the game. He wondered if the scenario deviated from the original, and he speculated it was because he wasn't acting like the original Alba. But if that was the case, Alba was still ready to take the boss head-on. Not long after, Alba had finally come face to face with the boss, the 3-headed magic beast, Chimera. True enough, the boss had changed too. Alba remembered the beast and how he had a tough time with it. It wasn't even supposed to be in a tutorial. Just then, someone screamed for help, which caught Alba off guard. To his surprise, the snake part of the Chimera held a girl captive, and she seemed to know Alba. To Alba's surprise, it was none other than Alice. Though it was quite bad timing, she introduced herself to him and said it was nice to meet him. However, she quickly said it was no time for introductions and screamed for help again. Not her trying to secure a friendship before her funeral. Alice claimed she got lost and then the chimera caught her. Meanwhile, Alba thought about the fact that he had met one of the heroines who happened to be Eurys's childhood friend. He couldn't just leave her to die in a situation like that, so he told her to hang on and that he would get her out of there. Just then, Alba launched forward and struck the chimera's goat head with a powerful lightning-charged kick. Sparks crackled through the air, yet to his shock, the attack didn't work. Before he could process what happened, the lion head suddenly opened its jaws and unleashed a torrent of fire, forcing Alba to leap back and take cover. Seeing this, Alice urgently told Alba that the chimera's weakness changes, shocking him. There are times when it's strong against magic and weak against physical attacks, and there are also times when it's weak against magic and strong against physical attacks. In other words, it has two phases. Alice then asked if Alba had been using lightning magic. That single question said everything. Right now, the chimera was in its magic-resistant phase. Things finally made sense to Alba. That was why he was having so much trouble with the chimera in the game. In the game, he had to work with his party members. Otherwise, it was an unbeatable magic beast. Suddenly, the chimera roared again, spewing another wave of fire that forced Alba to evade its attack. Thinking about Alice's advice, Alba decided to use magic to close the distance. He must dispel the chimera and hit it with a normal attack. Just then, Alba launched forward, driving his fist straight into the chimera's lion head with every ounce of strength he had. However, Alba cursed under his breath, realizing that a normal punch wouldn't even scratch the beast. That punch probably gave the chimera a massage. Furious, the chimera reached for Alba with its massive paw, but he was able to leap away. Alba knew he couldn't do it with his bare hands and he didn't even have a weapon with him. Meanwhile, Alice told him to get it together, saying he could do it. However, Alba told her she was one to talk when she was the one who got caught. Suddenly, the snake tightened its grip on Alice, making her scream in agony. Alba worriedly called out to her while she pleaded for help. Then just as the snake was about to attack Alba, its head was suddenly severed. Blood splattered as the serpent's head was cleaved clean off, allowing Alice to break free. Another person had slain the snake, catching Alba off guard. The man who stood before them was none other than Eurys, the game's destined hero. Alice blushed at the sight of him, though she knew he would come for her. Meanwhile, Eurys only smiled at her and said, "Of course." However, the battle was yet to be won as the chimera was still alive. Eurys told Alice to stay back, then face the furious monster. Without wasting time, he skillfully fought the chimera, slashing it with his sword. He asked the beast if it was angry because he was too. Anyone who hurts someone precious to him will not be forgiven. As Eurys relentlessly attacked the chimera, Alba only looked at him from below. As he had expected of the protagonist, he was clearly very strong. Then, in the middle of the battle, Eurys noticed that his sword could no longer pierce the chimera. Alice quickly told him that it could change its weak point. Just a moment ago, its weakness was physical attacks, but now it was different. Eurys finally understood. Physical attacks were no longer effective, which meant it was now weak to magic. Alba took his chance to help Eurys, and he used his lightning magic to attack the chimera. The chimera's goat head suffered under the impact of the attack, which surprised Eurys. Alba landed beside Eurys, greeting him in the process. He was the last person he ever wanted to team up with, but he still asked Eurys if he needed a hand. Eurys, on the other hand, was surprised to see him, and he recognized him as Al. Though Alba didn't like the situation he was in, he had to do it to end the event faster. Meanwhile, Alice grew excited to see the men team up, and she remarked that it was a nice development. This duo screams accidental power couple. As the chimera roared in fury, Eurys turned to Alba and asked what their plan was. He called him Sir Al, but Alba insisted that he casually address him. Sir Al sounds like a discount knight from Wish. Just then, Alba said there was no need for a plan, as there was only one thing to do. Eurys smirked, agreeing with his plan. Though this was the worst-case scenario, the hero and the rival must now team up. It was now time to blow the chimera away. Just then, Eurys and Alba simultaneously charged toward the chimera. Eurys was eager to slay it with his sword, while Alba manifested all his lightning magic. Upon facing the chimera's lion head, Alba quickly attacked it with a lightning-charged power kick. However, he got pissed when he realized that it was strong against magic again. The lion roared and attempted to devour Alba, but before that could happen, Eurys slashed the beast with his sword. Eurys screamed to Al that they must strike together, and he agreed. In a split second, they both rushed toward the chimera, impressing Alice, who was watching from afar. As the battle continued, Alice realized that the chimera had picked the wrong opponents. Even if it blocked Alba's magic, it would still be cut down by Eurys's sword, and if it blocked Eurys's sword, it would be vaporized by Alba's magic. These two were considered to be the strongest duo among the first years after all. As the men fought off the chimera, Eurys was impressed by Alba's use of high-level magic that could turn his own body into lightning. He believed his talent was terrifying. Meanwhile, Alba thought about Eurus's footwork and swordplay, which could keep up with his speed. He thought that guy was seriously scary. Before long, the Chimera was beaten to a pulp and it succumbed to its injuries. Eurus bowed to Alba, expressing his gratefulness. Thanks to him, they were able to rescue Alice safely. Alice happily agreed with Eurus and she thanked Alba as well. However, Alba played it cool and he told Eurus not to mention it. Just then, Eurus asked Alba how he knew his name. Alice wondered the same thing, though on their side they had already known him because they saw him at the dueling grounds. Alba froze, realizing what he had just done. Left with no choice, he stupidly said that he just kept tabs on any of the first years who looked tough. This made Alice laugh as he sounded just like a delinquent. Still, Alice thought it was impressive. She then boasted that Eurus was the strongest man in their village. Alba was surprised to hear that they were from the same village, which meant that they must be childhood friends. In his head, he was amused to know that was how the story went. Eurus confirmed it, adding that he and Alice grew up together. That was also why he was incredibly relieved that she was safe. Alice used this opportunity to tease Eurus, emphasizing how he was so worried about her. However, Eurus didn't deny it, as she was like a sister to him. The look of disappointment was evident on Alice's face as she realized that Eurus only saw her as that. She loaded up the flirt. He hit Uno reverse sibling edition. Unbeknownst to her, Alba saw right through her expression. Just then, Alice said that she could be the older sister. With that in mind, she punched Eurus in the face. Alba was stunned to see this, and he realized that Eurus really had his hands full. Later on, Eurus suggested heading back to the others. Just then, Alba recalled that they were in the Fenrir group while he was in the Unicorn group. That being said, he wanted to go back alone. Before he could leave, Eurus stopped him and said they could just walk part of the way together. Alice agreed, and she told him not to be a stranger because they were friends after all. Still, Alba refused the offer as he hated hanging out with people. At the back of his head, he also didn't want to spend any more time with the two death flag magnets. Seeing that he couldn't change his mind, Eurus respected his decision. However, he smiled and said he'd never forget what he had done for them. After that, Eurus told Alba that he would see him later. Meanwhile, Alba was stunned and he wished he could tell Eurus not to smile at him like that. They were fated to be rivals, destined to kill each other. With sadness in his eyes, Alba waved back to Eurus and Alice as they parted ways. In his mind, he thought it would have been better if Eurus were a more despicable person. After a while, Alba was finally alone. He looked around and noticed a presence close by, so he asked who it was. Whoever this person was, he knew they watched the entire fight. He couldn't see the person, which meant they were using some kind of invisibility magic. Just then, Alba activated his lightning magic and he warned that it was useless to hide. In his lightning form, he could sense any presence nearby. It was like his own personal radar was going haywire. Once again, he told the person to show themselves. His eyes narrowed, wondering if this was an enemy or not. Just then, a woman spoke, saying Alba was impressive. As she slowly revealed her true form, she commended him for seeing through her colorless camouflage. Alba's eyes suddenly widened in shock, recognizing who this person was. True enough, his speculation was correct. She was one of the main heroines. The woman then spoke to Alba, saying it was a pleasure to meet him and that her name was Lily. Alba asked how she knew his name, and Lily simply replied that there wasn't a single first-year student who didn't know him. That flashy display at the dueling grounds was enough for everyone to remember him. Alba's eyes lit up in fury, realizing that it was that damn duel again. He suddenly regretted dueling Walby, and he blamed him for everything. Alba realizing he's viral for the wrong reasons. After their brief introduction, Alba asked Lily where she was hiding. She explained that they were all in the middle of the battle when she arrived, and she was merely observing. She remarked that it was a unique form of magic, and it was the kind that she had only ever heard about from her master. Alba was stunned to know that she thought that about his magic. However, to his disappointment, Lily wasn't talking about him but the Chimera. Suddenly, the Chimera's corpse was engulfed in flames, shocking Alba. Before long, the corpse vanished into thin air. Lily told him that the creature was an imitation, a phenomenon transferred from another dimension. When the magic that sustained it vanished, the Chimera disappeared. Alba had no idea what this meant, so he apologized. Sensing he was puzzled, Lily went on to explain that it was based on the magical studies of dimensional phenomenon imitation theory. Alba was more confused than ever, so he asked what that was. Lily was stunned by his stupidity, and she was honestly amazed that he got into Kriana Academy. Man's entire thought process was just elevator music. To make him understand, she told Alba to take the phenomenon of making fire. You use a tool to create heat through friction, which in turn generates flame. This follows the rules that already exist in this world. However, magic is different. It is, by its very nature, an act of breaking those laws. Alba thought that magic was all about harmonizing with the forces of nature. At least that was what the book he read said. Lily broke it to him that what he was describing was mana, the raw fuel needed to perform magic. One must use the harmonized mana to tap into the very principles of another world. Magic is the act of using mana to interfere with another world, imitating a desired phenomenon and bringing it into this world. Hearing that, Alba finally understood that his lightning was a power from another world too. Lily confirmed he was correct, and the same concept applied to the chimera as well. Someone used magic to take the phenomenon of a chimera from another world and manifested it in this world as an imitation. It appeared because it was a fake magical beast created by magic. Creating an imitation of a magical beast is a special kind of magic that no ordinary person could use. Just then, Alba realized that if that were true, then the one who cast the spell was likely targeting the students of the academy. Elsewhere, two hooded women stood on top of a cliff. One of the women was impressed to know that a first-year pipsqueak was actually able to take down a chimera. She smiled, thinking that Kriana Academy wasn't half bad. The other woman said that it was as it should be. After all, it is one of the three great authorities alongside the royal family and the church. Just then, the woman told her subordinate, Yoru, that she was out of mana and she wouldn't be able to use her magic for a while. Yoru thought it couldn't be helped, so they had to withdraw for the day. However, she remained hopeful, as there would be other opportunities. She asked the other woman if she agreed, but the other woman only asked Yoru to do it herself. Yoru chuckled, and she admitted that her powers weren't suited for groups. With that, the women used their skills to leave the area. In the game, this was just a tutorial event for Alba. However, it seemed that the scenario was already changing. He was puzzled at the thought that a mage who could create magical beasts was another one of his death flags. However, if the mage stood in his way, he would show her no mercy. Now that the chimera was gone, Lily doubted there were any more enemies in the forest. Alba also guessed it was safe now, so he bid Lily goodbye to head back to the others. Before he could leave, Lily suddenly asked him who taught him magic. Alba said he taught himself, which somehow made Lily laugh. That laugh had plot twist energy. This made Alba's eyes widen in surprise as Lily had told him that he piqued her interest. Just then, she went on her way, bidding Alba goodbye until they met again. This interaction left Alba shocked, especially when he remembered that this event was the key to forging a bond with Lily. For Celia, the flag was working together on the rescue mission. For Elena, the flag was fighting alongside her. For Alice, the flag was saving her from the magical beast. And for Lily, by showing her his magic, the flag was making her take an interest in him. Alba was distraught, realizing that he just triggered the death flags for every single heroine. Later on, Alba finally reunited with the other students and they were glad to see him. Despite triggering his death flags, he was relieved that everyone was safe, which was what mattered. Meanwhile, in Kriana Academy, a cat named Tamakuro reported to the headmaster that they were attacked by an imitation of a magical beast. But apparently there wasn't a single casualty. The headmaster, who was pondering by the window, thanked him for the report. Concerned, Tamakuro asked if the enemy's targets were the first years, or if their objective was something else entirely. However, the only thing the headmaster knew was how the enemy was shrouded in mystery. He knew neither who they were nor from whence they came, but they'd better not underestimate his academy. Upon hearing that imitations of magic beasts had attacked, Lord Roy immediately sent out his knights to search the entire forest. Since Alba had created a deviation in the in-game event, altered scenarios were to be expected in Alba's life. Roy's eyes narrowed, realizing that the target was the first years. Elsewhere, an elderly professor welcomed the students, expressing gratitude for their efforts during the field trip. That night, as scheduled, they would stay at the bathhouse. The students were in awe when they saw the magical bath before them, which was said to heal injuries and illnesses. There, they were told to rest and recover. Alba thought the academy was pretty bold. As they turned an incident into a class, Celia asked what the incident was, so Alba recalled the magic beasts that had attacked them. That was reframed as a practical combat class, though it was a little scary. Overhearing them, Elena explained that the magic beasts created by magic were prepared by the academy. Elena said she knew, but it was more convenient to hide the truth to avoid causing a panic. That must be the academy's judgment. Elena's like, facts are scary, let's just rebrand murder as learning. Alba listened to the students around him, and they seemed calm and excited about the hot springs and the food. Suddenly, Elena's words made sense, and he admitted she had a point. However, Alba thought that, like them, there were probably other students who had sensed that something had happened. He thought about Lily and Alice, who were among those students. Celia was puzzled by their topic and remarked that she didn't get it at all. Elena apologized to her and volunteered to explain. Later on, Alba relaxed in their room, prompting the students to ask what the heck he was doing. He explained that he was savoring the tatami mats as this was the soul of Japan. One of the students laughed, asking what that was supposed to mean. Alba thought this was a game world after all, so of course it would have a mix of Japanese and Western styles. Just then, one of the students said that they were starving, but dinner would only be served after the bath. Eager to eat, the students hurriedly went to the bath. One of them warned the others not to go peeking in the women's bath, which quickly caught Alba's attention. Bro's stomach empty, but his intrusive thoughts full. Kriana Fantasy had a secret event called Peeping at the Women's Bath. While it was possible to see the heroines in a sexy state, one's affection level would plummet to -1, making romance impossible with them. It was a hidden element one should absolutely not choose if they wanted to clear the game properly. However, Alba didn't want to raise his affection with the heroines. This made him wonder about the possibilities of escaping his death flags. In the bath, the heroines complained about having boobs that were too big. Elena was annoyed that it got in the way of her sword. Just then, Celia massaged Elena's boobs and she innocently remarked that it felt good. Not the friendly boob massage arc. Celia told Elena that she was very cute, but Elena got shy and told her to stop it. Suddenly, Celia asked Elena if she was Al's fiancée and she came clean about it. However, she highlighted that she was an ex-fiancé. Celia asked what the situation was with him, and Elena answered her truthfully. Meanwhile, Alba enjoyed the bath with the other male students. It was not like he wanted to peep, but he really wanted to avoid his death flags. He blushed at the thought of it, but his thoughts were suddenly disturbed when someone called out to him. Eurus asked what was wrong as he was just spacing out in his little corner. Alba quickly snapped out of it, realizing that it was Eurus who was calling him. He smiled awkwardly at Eurus, causing him to awkwardly ask what was with the look on his face. Flustered, Alba avoided the question entirely, diving into the water with a splash and pretending it was perfect timing. He guessed he couldn't do something so lame after all. At the other side of the bath, Elena told Celia that Alba had helped her with the Walby situation. She was just grateful, and that was all. Now that she had explained that to Celia, Elena asked about her situation with Alba, knowing that she was living with him. She asked if she liked him, and Celia anxiously denied it. She explained that it was the same for her. Alba had saved her, and she was grateful. Elena smiled upon hearing it and agreed that Alba was an amazing person whom she could respect. The moment was interrupted by Alice, who joined their conversation with an air of excitement, revealing that Alba had saved her as well. Sis really said, "Alba saved me too," like that explains why she's naked. Confusion flickered across Celia and Elena's faces as they asked who Alice was. Alice's smile only grew and she introduced herself, explaining her affiliation with the Fenrir group. Elena responded in kind, identifying herself as part of the Unicorn group. Celia followed suit, offering a polite introduction. Alice, however, insisted on a casual tone, encouraging them to drop formalities as she intended to do the same. As the night went on, Elena learned from Alice that Alba had saved her from the Chimera. Celia was proud to hear that Alba had done that, though she had already expected him to be very strong. Alice confirmed it all, then continued to share that after the Chimera was defeated, the other magic beasts had disappeared too. Hearing that, Elena remarked that someone was targeting the students with imitations of beasts. Celia was terrified by the thought of it and wondered who it could be. Suddenly, Celia saw Alice staring at her, so she worriedly asked why she was doing that. Alice asked if Celia was the Saintess, and she confirmed it. Then, to Celia's shock, Alice grabbed her boobs from behind, admitting that she couldn't take it anymore. Alice apologized, but she was just so happy to be able to touch the Saintess. She grabbed the Saintess like she was ringing the church bells. Celia freaked out, telling Alice that she didn't have to grope her chest. Elena smirked, thinking that Alice was a strange girl. However, Celia was just as weird, as she was touching Elena's chest too. Suddenly, Alba overheard someone screaming Celia's name. Worried, he bolted out of the bath, wondering what that was about. However, he had jumped too high and was able to see the heroines from the other side of the bath, naked in all their glory. Bro jumped like Mario and landed in an HR complaint. Elena and Celia screamed in embarrassment while Alice took a good look at him to see if he really was naked. Alba, who was now accused of being a pervert, anxiously explained that it was not that. He had simply heard a scream and had been an idiot to react to it. Furious, Elena threw a bucket at him, screaming that he was a scoundrel. The bucket hit him head-on, sending him flying. Eurus understood that Alba had heard a scream and rushed to help, but still believed peeking was not okay. Using lightning in the hot spring was not okay either. It turned out that Alba was too stunned by the whole situation and ended up electrocuting the students who were in the bath with him. Alba, now dealing with a bleeding nose, guessed it counted as succeeding in the peeking event. Later that night, Eurus apologized to everyone, believing that the commotion was Alice's fault. Embarrassed, Alice apologized, then explained that she just couldn't help herself when the Saintess she admired was right in front of her. However, Celia argued that it was her fault for screaming so loudly. Alba complained that Alice was such a troublesome woman, so she dared him to say it again. Alice teased him, saying that he was just jealous of the view he got. Alba stuttered as he denied having seen anything, but the girls had already decided that he was a pervert. Elena even told him to commit seppuku. "Girl, we're in a bathhouse, not a shogun trial." Alba was glad that their affection was going down, but it still kind of hurt. Yuri suddenly intervened, saying that the Saintess was special to them. Celia asked what he meant, so Eurus shared that the village where they grew up had strong legends of a hero who protected the goddess of fate. Alice added that they were taught the goddess's teachings at a young age, so the saintess was a very important person to them. Just then, Elena brought up that Alice had just groped that very important person's chest. Embarrassed, Alice reminded Elena that she had already apologized. Suddenly, Eurus stepped forward, introducing himself as Alice's childhood friend. With a smile, he said it was a pleasure to meet them all. Celia and Elena returned the gesture with their own introductions, each careful and courteous. As Eurus interacted with the heroines, Alba realized that he was the rightful protagonist of the story. Just then, Celia told Eurus that they were classmates, so he should stop with the saintess and the formal speech. Elena agreed with Eurus, so he awkwardly forced himself to address them casually. Alice laughed at him, finding it funny how serious he was. As the group settled into a more familiar rhythm, Alba's presence cut through the chatter. He said that it was almost time for dinner, so he wanted to go ahead. The group called out to him, wanting to eat together, and happily followed. Alba, however, could not shake a flicker of irritation. A twinge of jealousy pricked at him. He was the villain, not the protagonist, not him getting jealous of screen time. Shortly after, the group gathered around a warm, hearty meal. Amid the conversation, Alba asked if anyone had seen Mina, a first-year student who was supposed to be with them. Celia remembered her as the girl they had met during lunch break, while Elena recalled that her father had mentioned something that very morning. News so shocking she could hardly believe it herself. When Alba pressed for more, Elena explained that Mina's parents, the heads of the Lupica family, had been murdered, right in front of everyone's ramen? Far away in the Lupica estate, Mina wept for her parents, her sobs filled with grief. She wondered why this had happened, and she desperately pleaded for help. Elena shared with the others that the killer was yet to be caught. Alba reflected on this news, thinking of Mina as a minor character in the world of Kriana fantasy, someone who shouldn't be drawn into the main story's dangers. He now wondered if the death of Mina's parents would affect his death flags. Celia's heart went out to Mina. She wished there was something they could do to ease her suffering, knowing that death was a burden far too heavy to carry alone. Elena was moved by her concern, nodding in agreement. Alba, observing Celia, knew that she had seen so many deaths. In this world, protecting the saintess always demanded a sacrifice. Though she looked sorrowful, she was still kind. Alba remarked that Celia was right. Death flags didn't have anything to do with it, so he would do anything to help Mina. As one of her friends, he would be there for her.